Small business war stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes. Hey, lovers of small businesses and good stories in general. Welcome to episode 138 of Small Business War Stories. And today I was in Central Texas in a place called Grange, Texas. And this is a place that's about halfway between Austin and Houston. As you drive on the highway, you see this really impressive display of older classic cars on the side of the road. And I'd seen that a few times, and I was curious, so I reached out and connected with Lance Herrington, and him and his wife Pam run Timeless Texas Classics and also Thunderbirds Southwest. And it's a really interesting business where they take cars in consignment, they restore, and they promote classic cars in general. It's a really cool. If you're ever in the area, certainly stop by. But they ship cars worldwide. They have all kinds of interesting cars from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, all the way through. There's some cars from the 70s, 80s that are, things like, or 90s even, like the Dodge Viper and things like that. Beautiful rolling pieces of art. And we talk about classic cars. We talk about what it's like to start a business. He started in a really, really tough time in his life, and what it took for him psychologically to make it as a businessman. He's been in business for a long time. He has lots of really amazing wisdom. So if you enjoy this episode, I'm going to ask you just one thing. Please share it with one person whom you think would be interested. Somebody who's into classic cars, somebody who's into all things Texas, or somebody who you think would appreciate Lance's story of persevering and winning. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode, number 138, with Lance Herrington in LaGrange, Texas. And we are live here in beautiful LaGrange, Texas. And today I have the pleasure and honor to sit down with Lance Herrington, who is the owner and founder of Timeless Texas Classics and, Southwest? Thunderbirds Southwest. Perfect. Mm-hmm. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to be here. You are here in a very unique location. I have driven by here many times. You are kind of almost halfway between Houston and Austin, right?
Correct.
And and you just drive on this highway and you see all these beautiful cars on the side of the road. And at least it piqued my curiosity several times. What's going on there? So here we are to talk about what is going on here.
Good.
Tell me a little bit more. So you originally started with, you love Ford Thunderbirds, right?
Correct. Always have.
Yeah. So tell me, how did this get started? Like what?
Well, I had a company in Houston.
Yep.
And in the early 80s, when Houston went under, I went under also. And felt sorry for myself for about a week, and that didn't work. So I started this company in our garage in Sugar Land.
Wow. And tell me, what was it like at that point? What did it mean to get started? You had a few Thunderbirds, you were buying them and selling them. What did it mean?
I was broke.
Okay.
And I had the one that I still have, and that had a revolving title for about 4 years.
Okay.
I had to borrow money against it to build the company, and then finally were able to purchase property in a building in Sugar Land, and then we ran it as a business rather than a hobby.
Okay. There's a lot we can unpack there. So, first of all, it's fascinating that there's something poetic about you using the title of your favorite car to build a business around your favorite cars.
Correct.
That's really interesting. And tell me more. So there's a couple of really interesting things that I want to dive into. The first one is that you were really down and out, and then you were able to turn that around and use that as motivation to build this business, right?
Correct.
And the second one is I want to talk about this distinction between business and hobby, because that's really, really powerful distinction. So let's talk about the first one. Psychologically, how did you, I think the saying is adversity causes some people to break and others to break records. How did you use this moment of being down and out and adversity to your advantage?
I saw it was a time to do this. I had no other direction to go. I was broke. and I just saw a future in it, and it worked.
Yeah. What are the things that you saw? I mean, what was it about classic cars and Thunderbirds in particular at that point that you saw as an opportunity?
Well, I just saw that it had a future, which it did, and it was easy to work with. I had a working knowledge of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to start to find customers.
And what were the first services and things that you offered? Were you reselling, buying and selling cars? Were you servicing them? Were you selling parts? What were you doing?
I was actually servicing and doing restorations, and it was a simple thing to do because I'd been doing it as a hobby for years.
Okay.
And I knew the ins and outs of the Thunderbird, and then went ahead and was able to go to the suppliers across the country and set up as an open account, and so I had access to all the parts.
Okay. So you were essentially then rebuilding them for custom. Somebody would bring you a Thunderbird that needed some TLC or a complete rebuild, and you would do that.
Correct.
Okay. Cool.
And then I saw a need for different parts, and we started having parts produced for them, which we still do.
Okay. So you mean custom fabricated parts for these cars?
Actually, some started out with suspension parts. They had a very soft suspension, and the OEMs, being Ford, Chrysler, General Motors, they would build a sway bar, one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
They would just change the bends. Well, they kept adding hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds to the vehicle, and they became useless.
Okay.
So we went to a national company, had them go ahead and remanufacture them to the weight of the vehicle
Mm-hmm.
for the proper resistance. And now we have dealers all over the world handling these.
Oh, cool. So you're basically selling these custom parts that make the car better.
Correct.
Okay. And you are, I guess, in essence, the manufacturer. Well, somebody else manufactures them for you, but you own the product.
Correct. We own the product. They're licensed to manufacture for us.
Yeah.
And some of them drop ship for us. Works out very well.
That's awesome. And you started, how soon into your journey did you start doing things? Because that's pretty advanced stuff, right? So to go from a garage where you're building and rebuilding stuff to speccing out and actually making parts, that's how many years did that take?
About 3.
Wow, that's
Mm-hmm.
pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, there were parts that were needed, and so we make them, have them made for the Ford and the Thunderbirds,
Mm-hmm.
even the little Nash Metropolitans.
Yeah.
They were a cute little car, but they were missing things. So, in fact, we just completed having aluminum radiators made for those.
Okay. Very cool. So tell me about those early days. What was it like? So you were in a garage in your house, right? So tell me, put me in that scene right there. Is it early days and you're having to basically mortgage your car to be able to make this work?
Correct.
So tell me about what was that like?
Very tight.
Yeah.
Not a lot of stakes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what were you working a lot of hours? How did you find your customers early on?
I was president of the Thunderbird Club in Houston, and we had about 100 members, and they were reluctant to come to me because they didn't know I had the working knowledge. And we had 4 competitors when we started in Houston area. There's no one there now.
Wow.
And we just did what we said we were going to do. It worked. You warranty your work, and you just give people a good shake.
Okay. Sounds good. And so you come a long ways because and part of that has been moving from Houston to LaGrange. When did that happen?
20 years ago.
Okay, 20 years. So it's been a while.
Yeah, well, we bought the ranch out here 23 years ago. We raised pecans, and we bought that, and we wanted out so bad that we commuted for a year.
Commuted from LaGrange to Houston?
To Sugar Land.
To Sugar Land.
And the wife worked at the medical center, so she was on the road 4 hours a day.
That is commitment to
Mm-hmm.
LaGrange.
Well, we wanted out. We wanted to get out in the country,
Yeah.
and then we found this location, and took about 6 months to redo the building, And then it came with 10 acres. And we started with a 7,500-foot building, and we've been acquiring 5-acre increments around the property.
Okay.
And we now have 33,000 feet under roof.
Wow.
And no debt service.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So you've been just kind of slowly building it and reinvesting into the business.
Oh, correct.
Yeah. Okay. And you also expanded way beyond Ford Thunderbirds, right? You were giving me a walk around the showroom floor, and you have everything. You even have some foreign cars, some Jaguars, but you also have Chevys and Fords and Jeeps and all kinds of things. Tell me more. How did that grow?
Well, people started asking if we would sell their vehicle for them. They do not want people coming to their homes for natural reasons. And so we started doing that when we moved out here. And in the 19 years we basically just completed with the doors open here, we've sold over 1,800 of these type of consignment vehicles all over the world.
Wow. And so you ship, if somebody from Japan or Australia wants to buy a car, you'll ship them out?
In fact, we just received a email on Wednesday from a customer in Australia. They were looking for parts on a car that it just arrived from us.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of car was it?
A 55 Thunderbird.
Oh, okay. There you go. Your specialty.
Mm-hmm. However, we've shipped all over the world. We have some in London that they use as wedding cars.
Oh, okay.
And Naples, Italy as wedding cars.
Okay.
So we never know what's going to be.
Very cool.
But you become friends of the people, and it's just kind of unique to have them on your email address and converse and just see how they're coming.
Yeah, and they probably send you photos of the vehicles and so forth.
They do. They do.
Tell me, in a world where everything is so digital and everything is available at, any, most piece of music ever recorded are available on your phone. Modern cars are now driving themselves. Where do you see, what's the importance of like a carburetor engine or, in a V8 engine and making in that feel of like where do you see that fitting into people's lives?
I see it dwindling. I really do.
Okay.
The original, the carburation, the young people do not want what the fathers wanted. We did not want what our fathers wanted with the Model A, Model T.
Right.
Just don't have any interest in it. And a lot of people like the vehicles to be stock, and fortunately people are manufacturing parts for these, and such as we're also having parts manufactured, but the younger generation really doesn't want these.
Doesn't want the classics.
No.
Interesting.
No, they don't.
There hasn't been as much of a resurgence because, for example, vinyl records are a great example where they went almost completely away with the introduction of the CD in the late 80s, early 90s, and they made a resurgence because people want that, like the emotional, physical connection with that music. You haven't seen as much of a resurgence of an interest in classic cars?
No, in fact, the younger folks, I'm saying from 30 on back, they just they want to get in a vehicle and go.
Yeah.
They don't know how to change a tire. They don't know how to change oil. They could care less.
Yeah. Interesting.
So they have no interest. Likewise, we have 4 grandchildren that, I should say 4 children, and then the grandchildren on top of that.
Yeah.
But the 4 children we have, they're in their 50s. Nobody wants this business.
Is that right?
So what do we do with the business?
That is a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me your thoughts. What do you do with the business?
I've done it 36 years, and I'd like to continue to go. I'm in good physical shape. I'm here 6/12s. I enjoy coming to work. I enjoy meeting the people, enjoy helping the people.
Yeah.
And they bring cars in. We had one was shipped in from Paris for us to redo.
Okay.
So it's very interesting.
That's cool. So let's talk a little bit more about the. Do you see? So do you think that this business is going to be something that's going to slowly, like people's interest is going to slowly decline to the point where like people are no longer buying classic cars, or where do you see like where classic cars fit into culture and people's lives?
Well, classic, that's a wide term.
Yeah.
The only real classics are the Duesenberg, the 36 Cadillac convertible, and the rest of them fall under a different class called special interest.
Okay.
Even the 57 Chevys, et cetera, et cetera. If you look, and even from Austin or Houston,
Mm-hmm.
the people that repair these, that are handling the special interest vehicles, there's not that many of them anymore.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to keep a company going when the doors are open and people are not coming in buying these.
Right.
And it's just a difficult business.
How have you been able to make it for so long?
I'm fair on my prices. I do what I say I'm going to do,
Yeah.
and it works.
Yeah. But at the same time, so I'm sensing this tension between, so you're sensing that people are not having a renewed interest in these, so the customer base is slowly going down, and presumably, I mean, you've been around, you've been successful, so presumably not all of your competitors have survived.
Correct.
So where do we go from here, I guess? And it's got to be really personally challenging for you to invest your whole life in something and then have to say like none of your children are interested in continuing that legacy, right?
Correct.
So how do you think about that?
And it's kind of a personal thing.
Yeah.
When you've built this and you enjoy it, but I understand they have their own interests.
Yeah.
It's hard to say what's going to happen with this industry. If you look at the big auctions, that's pie in the sky. The $1,000 to $10,000 vehicles are not there anymore. You're starting with 25,000 up,
Mm-hmm.
and then you've got fewer players or buyers out there, and they're able to put down millions for certain vehicles. And that kind of takes some of the people away from the bottom end of it also.
Mm-hmm.
We try to keep in a certain range on the price of our vehicles so that John Doe public can afford them.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most expensive we have here now is $50,000, and the majority of them are $20,000 and less.
Yeah, and you have some beautiful cars too. I mean,
Thank you.
That red Chevy you showed me, it's certainly priced at less than I would have thought based on how gorgeous it looks and what's in it. So.
Well, and that's one of the other problems. The public, the sellers that consign their vehicle to us, they have thoughts of grandeur as far as getting top dollar out of them because they watch these television shows.
Right.
And they're phony. They're just not realistic.
Is that right?
Correct. And on some of the auctions, you'll see the same car go through more than once.
Okay.
And you thought it sold the first time.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But they need to have vehicles that they can afford. And our average buyer is 55.
Wow. Okay.
They finally got rid of the kids. It's their turn to have a toy. And if they've done their due diligence, they have the money saved to buy it.
Uh-huh.
If they come in the door and they ask me if we finance, I'll look them straight in the eye and say, you can't afford these. These are toys. I've made a couple of them upset. The majority of them will just kind of grin and shake their head, yes.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So some people get offended by that.
They have been offended.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But why not tell them the truth up front?
Yeah. So your take is that if you have to finance this, you shouldn't buy it.
Correct. There are finance companies that specialize in the special interest and classic car end.
Yeah.
But their rates are a little high.
Okay.
I suggest the people use their credit union if they're a member of a credit union.
Yeah.
Banks don't like to touch them. They don't really understand them.
Right.
But the credit unions, since you are a member, then they've got a little more control on the asset.
Right. So, I mean, it's hard for me to hear this whole thing. For some reason, I thought that more people would be, having a renewed interest in these. I think they're incredibly beautiful objects of art. I just bought my first classic not too long ago. I was just telling you about, and I collect vinyl records. I have 8 tracks. I have reel-to-reel tapes, and I don't own a television, so I'm a little bit of an anachronistic exception, I guess. But to me, like the connection that you feel with the vehicle and with the road when you're driving that is very different than when you're driving a modern car. A modern car is almost like you're just the reason why so many people I think are on their phones when they're driving is because like they're not even thinking about the act of driving, right?
Correct.
These, as you call them, special interest cars, demand your attention.
You have to drive them.
Yeah,
you have to understand them.
Yeah,
we're spoiled by technology.
yeah,
And the modern vehicles are disposable. And one of the things, if you look down the side of a modern vehicle, you'll see all kinds of sculptures and not sculpture, but change in the design down the side.
mm-hmm.
It's not the straight old sides that the old special interests were.
Right.
Reason for that, they've made the metal so thin
Mm-hmm.
that they have to create these so the metal will not vibrate going down the road.
Oh, that's
Mhm.
interesting. Okay.
Mhm. Take a look next time you're out
Yeah.
on the modern vehicles.
Yeah.
And people are not interested in driving on a Sunday anymore or slow driving. If the speed limit is 70, they're doing 75 to 80.
Mm-hmm.
And they just don't have an interest to enjoy time.
Yeah.
And that's what these cars are all about, is
Yeah.
time.
It's funny you say that because I've been driving mine every single day, including going out for a drive. Like, we literally go out to cruise around Austin, like for a drive, because it's enjoyable. And it does, time and the appreciation of the now is basically all we have in life.
But you have to leave at 4 in the morning in Austin to be able to drive it till 6 to get out of traffic.
Exactly. Well, I try to drive in times when there's no traffic.
Understand.
But yeah, what's interesting to me is that what the car, my truck has given me is that appreciation for the now. It's like it's awareness, it's presence. Because like you were saying, the car, you have to drive it. It doesn't just drive itself. And there's a certain magic to that, right? And I think there's, I guess I'm hoping that there's a resurgence and interest in these things because people are looking for more ways to connect with the now as opposed to having their eyes on social media and like constantly thinking about other stuff.
They're enjoyable, but they're a time capsule.
Yeah.
Just like your records.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And they're also, it should be said, more of a money pit than a regular car. You end up putting more money into them in the long run.
Well, you do if you just go out and you buy one through an auction or eBay or item like this.
Yeah.
Because you don't have a chance to experience them.
Right.
We recommend anybody, because we sell all over the world, and we advertise in one of the major publications called Hemmings Motor News.
Sure.
It's the Bible of the industry. Their policy has been since 1951 when they went to press. 3 legitimate complaints against you as an individual or a company, and you're out.
Mm-hmm.
And so they put a number after each of the ads in there. Ours happens to be 29, which gives a lot of credibility on 29 years of being in there and not having that problem.
Wow.
So even with that, and all the ads we put in there on a monthly basis,
Yeah.
we get calls from all over the world, and people want us to explain the vehicle. I don't explain the vehicles. I put them on our website.
Yeah.
They can see photographs inside, outside, underneath. Photographs lie. And I highly recommend that they hire a certified appraiser. And you can get them out of Hemmings. You can get them, there are people in Austin that come over. That's a third party that gives you an unbiased opinion. It'll cost you $500. It may save you $50,000.
Yeah.
And we just highly recommend that.
Yeah.
That way they can get a true idea of what the vehicle is.
Uh-huh.
And I don't have to explain anything.
Makes sense. By the way, you just said the number 500, which brings to mind a related story that you told me before we started rolling here. And so you told me that if people want to test drive a vehicle that is above what price?
Well, if it's a certain vehicle.
Okay, a certain vehicle.
A certain vehicle, being a Dodge Viper as we have here, the Jaguar, what have you. If they come in, and you can read people very well, if you've been in this long enough, the way they walk, the way they carry themselves, their attitude, and if they just want to take a joyride, it's fine. Our policy is it's $500 cash up front, and we go with you. If you buy the car, it's credited toward the purchase. If you don't, you lose the $500.
Yeah.
We've never had to have somebody request their money back because they see at that point it's going to cost them $500, but it's only a mile drive, and I go with them.
Yeah.
So they don't really think that's worth $500.
Right.
And it stops the tire kicking joyriders.
Right.
If somebody is really interested, you feel comfortable with them, then I waive that. And it's worked many times.
Oh, so you have waived it before? Oh, interesting. So there's some judgment in there as to when you apply it.
And the older you get, the more judgment you're supposed to have.
Yeah. What's the saying that good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So that's something that's allowed you. What other interesting policies and tidbits and things you do around here that are, because that's, frankly, I'd never heard of anything like that before. It makes sense.
It does make sense. Yeah. And on doing restoration or repairs, we have a contract, and we sit down with the customer. We find out what they want.
Okay.
Then we type up a contract with everything they want. They have to go ahead and take the contract home, digest it, and figure the items you want. The items you don't want, you have to initial. So it's straightforward up front.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the rules.
Okay.
And I've had them come back and, you didn't do this. Well, let's go back through the contract.
Sure.
You initialed, you didn't want it done.
Right.
I'll be glad to do it.
Yeah.
But contracts work.
That's great. And you have folks here, so that's for restorations, and so you have a shop here with folks working on those
Correct.
cars? Okay.
Correct.
How many people work for you here?
We only have 4.
4, okay. So at any given point, they're working on how many different cars?
It depends.
Yeah.
He's working on a tractor right now.
Wow. Like one of the old school ones?
Yes.
Okay, I love those.
I'll show them to you later.
Yeah. I went to, I was recently for 4th of July, I was in the Iowa 4th of July, Grinnell, Iowa 4th of July parade. And I never knew that I liked old tractors as much as I do until I saw them rolling through. And they're just, I don't know, there's just some majestic power to them that's really difficult to explain in words.
And they last forever.
Yeah.
If you maintain them.
Yeah. And like, what's the orange ones? I forget the brand of them, but they're
Kubota?
Yeah. Well, the Kubota. No, there's another brand.
Massey Ferguson.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of them. So that's very cool. Can you tell me of a time when things went really wrong in your business, and what did you do about it?
The hardest part was getting started.
Okay.
I would say that the previous business went wrong. And, when Houston went under, it took 2/3 of Houston with it, and I happened to be part of the attrition. You feel sorry for yourself, or you get up and you go back forward.
Yeah.
It's been pretty even keel because I'm here 6/12s, and I enjoy it. Actually, I'm here on Sunday, too, doing some work with the gate closed.
Okay.
And it works. We get some great customers. Highway 71 is quite an affluent highway.
Okay.
There are a lot of theatrical people. There are musicians. There are politicians. And everybody puts their pants on the same way. And everybody has an interest in old cars, or the majority of folks do.
Sure.
So if they just stop in to take a break, you talk with them.
Yep.
And it's just enjoyable.
That's
so
awesome.
Every day is different here. So I'm trying to give you an answer without giving you an answer to that question.
Sure. Now, so you don't want to tell me about a time when things were really wrong, is what you're saying?
No, actually, no, there haven't been any times like that here.
Okay.
When we moved up here from Sugar Land, I had to start over basically because I had no base up here, and we're 100 miles from Sugar Land.
Right. So how did you advertise at all, or was it all word of mouth? Like how did people find? Well, I guess your real estate here is pretty amazing, given that you just described some of that. So a lot of your business initially was people just driving by?
Driving by, and the signage that we purchased, and also referrals. And starting out, I would go pick up the vehicles at no cost for the customers.
Oh, okay.
And now I think a pickup service is $4 per mile.
Okay.
So we were doing gratis, just we wanted to work.
Yeah.
And as it progressed, then they would have people deliver them for them up here. And we work on a schedule, so within a very short period of time when you're getting your vehicle back.
Right.
The majority of shops that do what we do, good luck.
Mm-hmm.
It could be 3 months, it could be 3 years.
Yeah.
And people age and they want their vehicle. So be fair with them up front.
That makes sense. Now, when you do these consignment deals, are you at liberty to disclose what the arrangement is?
Oh, sure. We charge $99 per month to consign them. We need it for 3 months to get it in all of our advertising.
Right.
And on our website. And out of this, it's washed once a week. We give the person that's selling the person that owns the vehicle, we give them full latitude to pull their car out if they want it, if they don't feel that they're getting the service up here.
Sure.
But the shortest one was 17 minutes.
Okay.
It was a red GTO big block convertible. The longest was 1 month shy of 4 years.
Wow.
I appraised for the antique insurance industry, and I told the man what it was worth, and he got greedy. And this is one of the problems. They watch too much television, and they're greedy. Once we have a buyer that we feel that can come up with the monies, then we go ahead and we have them wire the money to our bank, so it's complete transparency.
Mm-hmm.
And once everything is said and done, we give the seller a settlement statement with how many months it's been here, and our commission is 10%.
10%.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good deal for the buyer. For the seller, sorry.
Well, your auction companies, they get sometimes 9% from the buyer and 10% from the seller.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's like even more than real estate.
Oh, it is.
That's aggressive.
And that's common in the auctions now.
Wow.
So people think that they're going to make money at an auction. Once they get all the expenses in, the cost to put the vehicle in the auction, then the buyer's premium or the seller's premium, and then their transportation, their lodging and all. Yeah. They're not making what they hope to make.
Do you go to auctions still?
No, sir. I don't like
No,
auction.
you don't.
I don't like
Tell
auction.
me more about that. Why not?
I just don't. I think that they're pie in the sky.
Okay.
And the only people that are making the money are the auction companies.
Yeah.
And I watch the buyers and sellers, it's called buyer's remorse, because they're bidding against someone else, many times the auction company, or their shills that are in the audience.
Oh.
And so they're raising the prices. Some of the auctions have open bars for the people that bid.
Yeah,
And they have a,
wow.
It's called a bidder paddle, and some of them go as high as $500 for that bidder paddle.
Yeah.
But all of the alcohol you can have.
Yep.
So you don't want this other person to get it. And you keep bidding up and up and up. And we've sold a number of vehicles here that people have paid double what the value is.
Wow.
So
how do you have that conversation? So let's say somebody bought a car at an auction that they paid $40,000 for, and you look at it and you're like, I think this is worth 20, and they want to sell it here, and they're like, but I paid 40, and you're like, you think I can sell it for 20? How do you have that conversation, and what do you usually end up doing?
I basically tell them to pick it up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me. It's like these television shows that put the cars together in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We had one here, a 63 Thunderbird. A fellow called me from North Houston. They wanted $49,000 for this vehicle. They'd put it together in 2 weeks. And he said, I got a deal. I got it for $19,000. And I want to have it delivered to you, have you check it out and see if I got a good deal, if there's anything wrong with it. It arrived the next day, and I put it through the shop. He called me the next morning. He said, what kind of deal did I get? Did I really get a good deal? And I said, if you will send me a check for $30,000, I can make it a $20,000 car. And I said, besides that, it's not the real thing. It's a clone.
Wow.
He slammed the receiver down, had a vehicle pick it up, and that's the last I heard of him.
Wow.
So if it sounds too good to be true, it is, like every other business or every other item in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So what do you mean by a clone? It was all done with aftermarket parts or something?
No, this was a special. It was called a 63 Thunderbird Sport Roadster. They only made 455 of them.
Oh, okay.
It had a special VIN number. And it didn't have that VIN number.
Oh.
So it had just a regular convertible VIN number.
Mm.
So they had passed it off without giving him the full information.
Oh.
He bought it on a whim. In another case, we check them out when the cars come in for consignment.
Uh-huh.
And we had a 66 Thunderbird convertible come in, gorgeous, black convertible. The fellow said it was an R code, which was the 289 high performance, and beautiful car. And he wanted a premium price for it. Well, I started looking the car over, and a little thing he didn't recognize on there, in the VIN number, it was originally a 6-cylinder.
Oh, so somebody dropped in a V8.
He did.
Oh, he did?
And on a 289 V8, they have 5 lug nuts on the wheel. This had 4, so it was originally a 6-cylinder.
Hmm.
So I suggested he get in the car and don't come back. And he did.
Oh, because he was basically trying to pass something off.
Having me pass it off.
Right, right.
And again, in the 1,800 vehicles we've sold at this location, I've never had one come back for misrepresenting it.
Right.
Because I give the people full transparency.
Yeah.
I want them to have somebody check it out so that they're satisfied.
Right. And you're putting your reputation on the line as to the legitimacy of this.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Wow. How do you interact with the community? Do you have do you ever participate in I don't know either meetups or things like that, or like I don't know, what's your take on those?
I did that for many years.
Yep.
Being president of the Thunderbird Club for 3.5 years. Mm-hmm. I do this 6/12s. I'd rather be on a tractor on Sunday.
Yeah.
Back in one of the fields.
Yeah.
We help the community wherever we can. We furnish vehicles for parades and just help carry the people. Mm-hmm. And then to help the community, we've done to the local, the aged homes, rest homes.
Yeah.
We'll work with the community and furnish 3 or 4 cars, have them bring the people to the front, and we'll take them for a 20-minute drive.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear the same stories over and over and over and over, but it gets them out of jail. And it helps.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of ways you can give back.
Yeah. And what do you see, I mean, what do you want to do going forward? I mean, you're in a tough position. I empathize with you because you have this labor of love, and it's something that's been a part of, a great majority of your adult life, where you've built a reputation, you have your business, and so where do you go from here? I mean, you were talking about, I mean, what do you want your legacy to be, and how do you want to cement that and build that?
Well, at my age, I'd like to go another 8 or 10 years if I could,
yeah, of course.
If the health holds up, and not having any debt service. I'm in a good position. Mm-hmm. I've done some good investing, and I'm in a good position. I've had a couple people come in and ask about if I would sell this to them.
Okay.
And so I know I've got a tool here that's worth some value.
Yeah.
If not, if they don't want this business, I can liquidate the inventory because we have considerable inventory. The buildings here and the location, they're phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we even have a landing strip we put in out here.
Is that right? Because you're a pilot as well,
Correct.
right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. Do you do anything business related or with planes, or is that just for fun?
No, that's fun. We had a experimental aircraft chapter. We still have in Grange.
Mm-hmm.
And for 12 years, the first Saturday of each month, we would have a barbecue.
Yeah.
And it was donation only. And we had as high as 87 people come in to one of the barbecues in LaGrange, 87 aircraft. And we finally we shut it down about 6 years ago because of the cost of fuel, and foods were going ridiculous. And at that time, we had generated 48 scholarships for kiddos.
Wow.
This group of 15 of us.
That's awesome.
So I flew back over here, landed, topped it off, and I said, you know what? I've cheated death 47 years. It's time to quit. I'm not enjoying it like I did.
So you don't fly anymore?
No, I put it on the website, and a fellow came out from Richmond, Rosenberg to buy a car and bought the plane.
Okay. What were you flying?
Oh, this last one was a 1949 Champ, they called it.
Yeah.
Sort of like a Piper Cub.
Yeah.
But I'd had a number of different aircraft during the 47 years.
Yeah. But you do have an aircraft here on the field. That's just for show right now?
That's for putting in the front yard. That's a aircraft that will never fly again. It was given to us.
Okay.
And so we paint it up every couple of years with a different theme.
Yeah, that's cool.
And one of the young men that worked for me, he wanted to join the, one of the services, and Coast Guard.
Mm-hmm.
And so he drew a design he wanted to do, and we let him paint the whole thing in Coast Guard colors and had it out front for 2 years. And
that's awesome.
so you try to you help the community wherever you can.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's interesting that you talked about. I mean, I've thought about getting a pilot's license at different times, and like you're shaking your head, no.
No, put 10 to 12,000 in an interest-bearing account.
Yeah,
and just have them draw from that, because it's going to cost you a minimum of 10,000 to get a license.
Yeah, between the hours and all that. Yeah.
And it's ridiculous, the hourly and the rules and regulations, and it's if you want to fly, you need to be a full-time pilot.
Yeah, that's exactly what the conclusion I ended up coming up with. You cannot just fly once every 2 to 3 weeks, because that's how you get hurt.
Or dead. You don't get hurt.
Yeah.
You get dead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because if knowing people who are private pilots, basically, if you're on top of things and you have all the safety procedures and your reflexes and you're like everything down, then it's like a reasonable thing to do. But if you're doing it as like a once in a while hobby, like the same way you play tennis with your buddy,
exactly,
it's not really the best idea in the world.
But one of the things you'd ask me if there was anything interesting that kind of different that goes on here. We get to meet a lot of great people.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I received a call from a fellow in Houston. He wanted a Black Thunderbird, 58. That's the first year they came out with a 4-passenger.
Mm-hmm.
And it had to have factory air.
Yeah.
They only did that up to about 10% of them. Anyway, I checked on one I had judged a couple of years earlier in San Antonio, traced it to Dallas, and the man said he would sell it. So this fellow and I took a plane out that morning with cash and bought the car.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking to all of his friends on the way to Dallas. And he said, what are you doing this afternoon? I said, Bill, you have the tickets. Okay, let's go to Dallas. So we get over to the Coliseum. The outer gate opened, closed. The doors to the Coliseum open, and we drive this Thunderbird into the middle of a guitar convention.
Oh, okay.
A fellow named Billy Gibbons.
Yeah.
ZZ Top.
Yeah.
So, again, he had the car shipped back. He wanted it lowered, and he wanted some other things done to it, and He still has it. It's called the Mexican Blackbird. It's still on his website.
Okay, very cool. So you worked with him to get that car. That's awesome.
Yeah, and
he lives in Houston still, right?
he does. Huh?
Yeah, so I've seen him in Austin a few times. Actually, we know some. Actually, a former guest of this podcast, Matt Ike, who makes Mule resonator guitars in Saginaw, Michigan. Actually, I bought one of his guitars, and he met Billy, and I ran to Billy at a supermarket in Austin. We started talking about these mules, and he's a really friendly guy. He was like, yeah.
Going up there, he anybody that would ask him questions, he would speak with them. He would spend the time.
Yeah, he loves classic cars for sure.
He does,
and old guitars too. So.
And he bought two while he was there, and I kind of stood behind him and back about 15, 20 feet, and he turned around and he motioned me to come up there, and he said, "These are a lot of my friends. A lot of them need vehicles.
There you go.
Walk with me."
So that probably ended up being a good deal for you.
It does. And again, we never know who's coming up and down Highway 71 here. Yeah. There was a fellow came in, and he was leaning up against a car, and I asked him not to lean up against the car.
Yeah. And
his bodyguard needed some parts. And I had a bunch of them way back in one of the boneyards, so he and I went back, and the fellow bent over, and he's carrying a weapon. So I asked him what's going on, and he said, well, I'm the bodyguard for those two people, and my boss wants to buy that vehicle. So we come back up, and he said, "Can I use your phone?" Sure. He calls Beverly Hills and puts me on with the secretary. Mm-hmm. She says, "How do you want the check? Do you want cashiers? Do you want it wired?" I said, "A cashier's check would be fine." We shook hands. They left, and I get a call a little bit later. There was no contract. So I filled out a contract, faxed it to her. She sent it forward. Mm-hmm. The man signed it. We had the thing back with the check the next morning. Mm-hmm. He was the brother of Randolph Hearst.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm. So we never know who's coming up and down 71.
Yeah, I mean, that gets deep as to why they have bodyguards, like the whole Patty Hearst thing.
That's it.
Yeah, and have you been to Hearst Castle before?
I have not.
Yeah, it's an insane place. It makes absolutely no sense, and it's also awe-inspiring in its own right. So it's a very odd combination of things.
We had Tanya Tucker in here also. Jerry Jeff Walker bought a car here, so we never know who's coming in that front door.
That's awesome. Well, it sounds like you're having tremendous amount of success. And if people, so you mentioned that you would deal with people all over the land. If people are interested in learning more about your business and buying a car from you, where can people find you?
Just Hemmings Motor News, or they can bring us up at our website, which is just thunderbirdsouthwest.com, or Timeless Texas Classics. People thought we were just handling Thunderbirds, and about 8 years ago we added Texas Timeless.
Yeah.
And it diversified the whole inventory here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Or they can bring us up on our 979-249-4200, our 800 number, 722-TOYS.
Okay.
Because we're in the adult toy business.
Adult toy business, different kind of adult toy business, and bring cash because you don't finance.
We do not finance, and that's if they want one, they've looked around enough.
Sounds good. Lance Herrington, it's been a pleasure and honor to have you on the show. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
All right, take care.
Good.
Small Business War Stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes.